This is Cheryl Stepp. Thank you for joining me in the Creating Resilience video series. This is the 5th video in that series. Last time we talked about the Adverse Childhood Experiences study. And what researchers have really found is that children with histories of living with toxic stress, they often struggle with attachment or connection. And that makes sense because if you think about the 10 childhood adversities, a lot of them have to do with that relationship with the caregiver. So if you're experiencing any type of abuse or neglect, or if we have had some sort of family dysfunction, all of those interrupt the connection with our support people within our family. So it makes sense that attachment is something that is impacted. The other thing that is impacted is our ability to regulate. That means our ability to feel really upset and then come back to calm, or feel really nervous and be able to come back to where we can be in that front seat. And it makes sense because if we're experiencing a lot of adversity or toxic stress in our life, we're living in the trunk or the back seat. And so it's hard to come back into that front seat. We're just simply surviving and trying to build up safety and connection in our lives. So the third piece, the competency, makes sense. Competency is what's in that front seat of our brain. And we talked about that a couple of videos ago, how our neural connections don't even develop the way that they should if we're raised with a lot of adversity as a young child. This was a study done and a framework built by two researchers called Kristen Kinnenberg and Margaret Blaustein. And they took this research that attachment, regulation, and competency are impacted by early adversity. They created what they call the ARC framework for attachment, regulation, competency, ARC, the ARC framework. And what they did was create a framework of tools and strategies that we can use, preventative factors, to help overcome the negative impact that trauma might have. Because adversities are not destiny. The power of one caring and confident adult relationship is the key ingredient to overcoming adversity, whether you're a child or an adult. That makes sense because that one caring and competent adult can give you support and help you with resources. Right? I took the ARC framework and I created my own analogy, which I like to do, and I created what I call the collective well-being tree. The root system of this tree is about attachment. It's about caring and connected communities. It's how do we build safety and trust and connection. And it begins with caregiver R&R, which is not rest and relaxation. It's reflection and regulation. It's how do we take care of ourselves as caregivers. The second part of the root is attunement. How do we connect with other people and attune to their energy and attune to their emotions? Then how do we respond? How do we respond to keep people in the front seat of their brain? And how do we respond when they're in the back seat or trunk? The last root really ties everything, in fact, the whole tree together. It's about building strong routines and rituals in our lives so that we help people feel belonging and predictability, which builds safety and connection. So you can see how all of those pieces work really closely together. The body of the tree is the R in ARC. It's about regulation, and it's how do we calm and how do we communicate. It's about emotional identification. Do we actually even understand our own emotions? Can we teach other people to understand their emotions? And then how do we regulate? How do we shift and change our energy levels so that we feel more comfortable and effective in a situation? And not only how do we do that, but how do we help other people do that? And the last piece is how do we express our emotions in a way that is respectful and gets our needs met and gets other people's needs met. And the branches of this tree that can only develop after you have a strong root system and a trunk. That's where we start working on the competency, the executive functions, working memory, flexible attention, inhibitory or self-control. And then also, how do we really create a positive self-identity? And you can see how the branches of this tree cannot fully develop if you don't have a really strong root system or a really strong trunk. But the more deep of a root system you have, the more connection you have in life, the more you are able to regulate and feel control within your own body and understand your own body and emotions and how you're reacting to the environment around us. If that's really strong, then your executive functions, your planning, your goal setting, your self-identity about who you are and who you want to become are really strong and robust. That's why I call it the collective well-being tree. It doesn't happen in isolation. We have to do this with other people. We have to live in communities and spaces where we are supporting each other, because relationships are the agent of change. It can't be something we do just all ourselves. Some of it we do ourselves, but it's all about how do we relate to other people and to the circumstances around us. Your reflection question today is, who is someone you can connect with when you need support? And why do you reach out to that person? So just pause and think about that. And your action step is to pick a person at home or at work with whom you want a stronger relationship, and spend about 5 minutes a day just engaging in uninterrupted conversation with that person. Really focus on that relationship and that conversation and connection, and see what doesn't change for you, even by that simple action step. Thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to seeing you next time. If you want more information, you can go to my website, creatingresilience.org.